right, guys, welcome back to the Walleye Files. This week's guest, our buddy Mark Kortz, Harris, Minnesota. Marky, how you doing?
Good, guys. How's it going?
Not too bad. Living the dream here in southern Minnesota. Trying to get on some open water, but it just doesn't want to show itself.
I know the river, although, that freeze your butt off tournament last weekend on the river looked good. Those guys caught them pretty decent. So there is opportunity. I know some people were down in Minneapolis and St. Paul fishing down on the river. So, yeah, things are starting to open up. We've got obviously a lot of ice yet, but it won't be long.
Yeah, same here. Fox River is pretty wide open. I think I'm going to get out for the first time this weekend. I'm pretty excited. Bexus was running good the other night. He hooked her up to the muffs, did some oil changes, and I think she's ready.
Have you got your boat and everything all ready for this year, Mark?
That would be overrated to have anything in time on schedule. No, I do not. So we've got a busy couple of weeks here with sport shows yet, and then when we get back from the Classic in Fort Worth, then we'll worry about getting the boat ready, and it'll be ready just in time to head to South Dakota for Shields University, get it broke in there, and then we'll head to the first tournament.
So Mark, tell me about the Classic, 'cause I've never gone as somebody who's just a fan of fishing. It's something that I've watched since I was a little kid. Like my first Classic memories are like watching Ike and Ellie go crazy and win the Classic, Takahiro Mori, Kevin Van Dam. I know you're a huge bass guy. You fished the Sturgeon Bay Open here, locally. For me, I've never fished it. I'm kind of jealous. Talk to me about what the Classic is like.
It's a sport show on crack. Honestly, you've never seen so many people that love the outdoors like you do at a Classic. I mean, they're lined up for half mile at every entrance to most of these stadiums, and I've been at a lot of them, and it's absolutely unbelievable. I was in Fort Worth in 21 during the COVID year when they moved it to Fort Worth in the summer. And yeah, people just come from around the country to go see the Classic. It's unbelievable the amount of people that go through that auditorium in a day.
And really around the world, right? Like you've got, since Gussie has won, you've got Carl Jacobson, who's obviously from Australia. You got guys from
Japan.
Canada, Australia, all over the place coming in to
Yep.
watch.
Yeah, you do, and that's the cool thing about it. So you just see people from around the country, and they all have one thing in common: fishing.
Yeah, I went to a Elite Series event down by La Crosse, Minnesota, or La Crosse, Wisconsin. Sorry, a few years ago, and man, obviously that's not the Classic, but man, they know how to put on a show at those bass events. You walk down there and there's big outboards floating above the stage, and just the stage itself is just insane.
Yeah, and it wasn't long. I mean, honestly, I guess I've been doing this 27 years now, and it wasn't long ago that we used to have that in the walleye industry. So it's not that it can't be done in the walleye industry. We just need somebody to take time and do it like we used to do it. I mean,
How
when
do you
we used to
think?
go to Bismarck back in the day, it was a drive-through weigh-in, and we were throwing stuff out of our boats to the fans. And I mean, the arena in Bismarck was absolutely packed. So, yeah, no, it can still be done. We just need somebody to take control and do it.
Yeah, I can remember 2004. My dad made the PWT championship. Same thing in Houghton. They're driving a truck around in an ice arena, throwing
Yep.
shirts and frisbees and hats to everybody in the crowd. You got a couple thousand people cheering for walleye anglers. How do you think we can grow what we have now, and get back to those days?
Well, we can. It just takes, an organization that wants to go through that much work, and it is work. But I think, I don't think it's out of the realm. I mean, there's a lot of things that we could change in walleye fishing right now that would make walleye fishing a lot more, I guess, exciting, entertaining to people. Bring it back to life. It's disheartening to see where we've gone with walleye fishing right now, and I'm not negative about it because I continue to do what I do every day. And there's guys that are doing a great job on their side, on their own doing it. But from an organization standpoint, I don't know if anybody did it like the Linders with In Fisherman back in the day. They just knew how to put on a production, and that's how you get fans excited about the sport. I don't want to say we lost it when FLW went away, but things have definitely changed. We just, they try to do some things with drive-through weigh-ins. We've done those a couple times now in North Dakota during NWTs, and that's good. It gives guys opportunities to get, sponsors, just different things, a look from whether it's a truck wrap or a boat wrap or things like that. And it just brings the excitement back, and that's the sad thing that we don't have right now is the excitement.
Do you think a lot of that has to do with social media kind of taking over? It has, social media is a free marketing tool,
Mm-hmm.
and I almost feel like some of these organizations, they feel like they don't have to go above and beyond with weigh-ins and stuff like that because they have a free marketing tool there that they can attempt to market the tour for free.
True. And you're right about that. But I mean, the walleye side of things right now, we're the only professional tour that does not have a live format of some sort. And God bless Robert Cardenas's heart that he is the only one that has created any excitement around walleye fishing with the videos he does and the Facebook stuff that he does. I mean, he's the one that's right now keeping it alive. That's what we got right now.
I think that's
Robert's
part
a
of the
great guy,
reason
too.
we started this.
Exactly. No,
What?
Yeah, go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, I just think to generate a little bit of excitement, and really for us at the end of the day, this is all a learning experience for everyone. We want to help people catch more fish and have some fun with it.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things we've gotten away from. If I look back at my career and all the tournaments that I fished, I started with NAWA, which was a Cabela's Run circuit back in 98, and then went right to the PWT. And then from PWT, fished both PWT and FLW, both full circuits. And then obviously when PWT went away in 2008, and then we went on to FLW. And then I think in 2000, I don't know what it was, 14 or something like that, is when NWT took over, and been fishing that ever since. So I've seen a lot of things, and what I really believe is missing from where we used to be is teaching the anglers what we're doing in the water. If you look at any of the past PWT videos, even FLW, when Linders were videotaping that stuff, they actually taught sometime throughout that show. It wasn't just about somebody up on stage talking and crowning a winner. You actually seen what the winners were doing, and if they didn't get them on film during the tournament, they actually took time and took them down to the boat and walked through what they were doing, showed whatever they were doing, whether it's a jig or whether it's a spinner or whether it's a crankbait. Talked about, were they pulling lead core, were they pulling mono, were they pulling fireline, what they were doing. And that's what that's what we're not giving our consumers now. And I really believe that's what's hurting the walleye industry. We aren't keeping it alive because that's the one thing that people want to watch and see. The only reason why I watch a TV show is to learn something, right? If you watch Bass, if you watch MLF, if you watch NPFL, all those right now, you actually see what the guys are doing. You looked at, I don't know how many people watched Brandon Polinick this week down at Okeechobee, but literally you got to see everything he was doing. That's cool. He was throwing 10 different baits throughout a day and never moved, but through 10 different baits. And that's honestly what it's about. What goes through your head? What are you seeing? Those are the types of things people want to see and learn.
Did you watch him catch the back-to-back 9-pounders? Because I was at work and I may have got really loud and giddy about it, and I got a little yelled at.
Yeah, I'm addicted. I was addicted last week. Brandon, number one, has done such a great job with his own social media platforms, and not only that, but just growing the sport. He's just a good person for the sport. And I know him very well. And yeah, what he's done is pretty awesome. And that was just cool to see. And if you weren't addicted, if you weren't glued to the TV, there's something wrong with you.
And I think too, with the live events, if you noticed, like in the past, when somebody has put on a show like that, and everybody gets to see what they do, they hold it up for the camera and they say, "This is what I'm throwing." You go online later that day, they're sold out everywhere. You can't get them. So
100%.
I think a lot of it too is, you start doing stuff like that, and some of these bigger companies are a lot more likely to throw some big money behind some of the walleye anglers if they're going to see a return like that.
100%. And it's unfortunate. The real bike or the real shot guys, had the right platform and they were doing a good job with it, and it just didn't survive. They didn't give it long. I mean, some of that is going to take a year or two to grab hold, get some sponsor involvement, and that's one of the things that people don't understand. It's not overnight that I can just say I'm going to create something and sponsors are jumping on board, right? You got to create a platform, build it, and they will come. One of that type of program, and that's one of the things that we're struggling with right now, right? I mean, that's where we're at, and we need to do something to grow that and build that.
For sure. So not to change gears, but I'm kind of changing gears. So you said, 27 years of experience. Um, you know, you've got a lot of accolades, Mark. 2008 PWT champion in Bay City. 2015 Angler of the Year for the NWT. In 2017, you won on the Mississippi River. Um, which one of those accolades is most special, and which one of your wins in your career is most special? Is your favorite?
I don't. Obviously the first one probably at Oahe probably stood out the most in PWT. But Bay City was pretty awesome. I mean, the last PWT champion, and that's just been a special place for me. I met my wife there. I got engaged there. So there was a lot of things that happened in Bay City for me. But Angler of the Year probably is the biggest, just strictly because it's a culmination of multiple tournaments, everything coming together, and had the opportunity to do it again here not too long ago. I think in 21 or 22, and just let it slip through my fingers on Ottertail. But, and that there again, that's, everything just didn't come together. I had a lead going in there, but it takes everything coming together. And that's probably the coolest thing about Angler of the Year.
That Ottertail tournament that you had just touched on, are you talking about the NWT championship? And was that
But
21?
McQuaid won it. So it was 21 or 22. Yeah, something like that.
I actually came up to watch that one. That was kind of a crazy tournament. I saw the guys having a hard time getting out, with the low water and everything else, and guys in waders pulling boats up as far as they could just to help anglers out. That was kind of a crazy event.
Yeah, you know what though? I mean, there again, it's one of those things when you go to those small communities, people get involved and people get excited, right? I mean, you've seen the crowds that we had at Ottertail. That was cool. You know, those are the types of bodies of water that we need to go to for a 40 boat championship. We don't need to go to Great Lakes where you can't get people involved. People can't be out in the water and see it. It's tough for film crews to get to boats on Great Lakes, and those types of bites. But you go to a body of water like Ottertail, and it fished really well. I had a great practice there. It was just one of those deals where I couldn't do anything right day one. Day two, I came in with a limit. If I would have done that both days, it would have probably turned out different. But I think that's where we really started to see, on the walleye side of things anyway, forward facing sonar really starts to take off. And McQuaid capitalized on it and Tom Wynn capitalized on it there. And that was probably the first time that Ottertail really seen forward facing sonar. And you've seen what those guys did on not your typical bites. I was kind of keying in on the whole creek chub, spot tail shiner bite, up shallow on jigs. And that's just how I've grown up here in the Midwest. That's something we do in the fall and the spring, and spot tails on long shank jigs up at the weeds and those types of things. So it's fun to get back to those types of bites. And we go to the same bodies of water every year, right? I mean, nothing's changed. And with 40 boats, it gives you the opportunity to go to these other bodies of water. And that's really where it's fun.
And as a fellow Minnesota boy, why do you think the tour hasn't stopped in Minnesota other than Ottertail, 4 or 5 years ago? And I guess Pool 4, but border water.
One of the things that we deal with in Minnesota is time frames, right? So after June 15th, you can't have a catch and release tournament. And then you have to wait until, I think, September 15th or sometime in that time frame. Why we don't come back, I don't know. It's mind-boggling to me. As good as Lake of the Woods is, as good as Ottertail is, as good as Leech Lake is. I mean, we can go on and on, about different bodies of water in Minnesota where we could host tournaments. Big Stone, would be a great place for a 40-boat tournament. Even some of those South Dakota glacial lakes. I mean, there's no reason why we couldn't go to those for 40-boat championships. I think what we've run into is real stale organization that just goes with what they know, right? I mean, it's real easy when you know somebody in the community to go get the funds that it takes to get an organization there. And we don't go searching for new locations from a corporate standpoint. So, I mean, that's where I think we're at right now. But I mean, like you said, there's so many good bodies of water that we could go to. Winnie would be another one. Obviously, lodging would be a little bit more difficult there at Winnie. But there's still there's enough resorts and with everybody doing VBROs now and things like that, you're only talking 80 guys. I mean, it's not hard to hide 80 guys on a lake like that.
Absolutely.
So, talk to us about being a bass and a walleye angler. For those who don't know, Mark fishes a lot of bass events. How do you stay versatile? Because I feel like you can get super one-tracked mind as a walleye fisherman or a bass fisherman. You can be really stubborn, flipping grass or just pitching a jig in a minnow, especially in the forward-facing sonar day and age. How do you stay versatile in both sides of walleye and bass fishing to stay ahead of everybody?
Well, I think the biggest thing now is, a lot of it's real similar, right? Especially if we talk about forward-facing sonar. Its presentations may be a little bit different. That's one of the things I really struggle with walleye fishing right now. I think there's an opportunity right now to grow walleye fishing would be artificials. You make tournaments artificial only. It's going to piss some guys off. I get it. But you know what? Change is change. And the only thing that's going to do is draw sponsors in, right? Let's look at bass fishing. I mean, the reason why it's exciting is there's new companies getting involved. There's softer baits. There's scent impregnated baits. There's, all sorts of different things that are keeping that industry going. So we could do that in walleye fishing. It would bring all these other sponsors, the Yamamotos of the world, the Pure Fishings of the world, the Yums of the world, Rapples of the world. It doesn't matter who we talk about, but it would bring those companies into it and it would make it a lot more exciting. So I think the biggest thing for me though is it keeps it fresh. It's really easy as a one-track angler just to do the same things over and over again. And whether it was, salmon fishing for me or walleye fishing or bass fishing or saltwater fishing, I spend a couple weeks a year down in South Florida doing saltwater, and that just keeps it all fresh for me. And that's what I enjoy about, and that's why I keep doing the bass side of things. So for me, it's just keeping it fresh. Like I said, a lot of the techniques, walleye fishermen were probably the first ones to start going fishing offshore, right? So it was real easy for me to transition into that bass side of things. I'm not a big shallow water bass fisherman where I go up and flip a lot. Everybody loves to go throw a frog in the pads and see a big blow up, but the offshore stuff is a lot of where it's at now. And, for the past 6 years probably. I've been fishing the Champions Tour when we don't have conflicts on the walleye side, and that's a every fish counts format, which is a lot of fun, and it's a different mindset. You just, the way you approach that tournament, and knowing we've got a marshal on our boat, and they were real smart when Scott and Nancy Bonneman started the Champions Tour. They got the high school kids involved as marshals. So you had high school kids in your boat, and they were wanting to learn, and it was a great opportunity for them. They got paid at the end of the day. They got a stipend for being there and doing it. And it was fun to have the kids in the boat and talk fishing all day, because they're just giddy about what you're doing and all those sorts of things. So that's an opportunity, I think that's out there, and it made it a lot of fun for me. But that every fish counts format, where you know where you're standing and who's behind you and what they're doing or who's ahead of you. You think, okay, that guy's a flipper, or that guy's an offshore fisherman. So things are going through your head, and you're like, where did I miss this bite, or what's going on? And the lakes were split in two, so one half you couldn't go back to the same spot, both halves.
So the Champions Tour, is that just a Minnesota tour, or is that
Actually, this past year, we actually expanded and went down into Iowa. We fished east and west Okoboji, which was a lot of fun. So yeah, currently it's Minnesota only. And Scott actually tried to do it on the walleye side, and for the guys that actually did it, it was a blast. It was every fish counts on Mille Lacs. Dylan Nussbaum actually won it, doing something that I would have never thought of doing. And Mille Lacs is kind of my, in my backyard. And he was actually jig wrapping in super shallow water with some heavy baits, and just absolutely crushed the field. But for the guys that fished that tournament, I think they all had a lot of fun.
Man, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, for
having
sure.
fun.
I think a lot of times we forget that too. We get so wrapped up into everything else that we kind of forget sometimes that this is fun. That's why we do it.
Well, it's real easy to get wrapped up in it, right? I mean,
yeah,
we'll get in that mindset that it's a grind, and but it gets repetitive, and that's the nice thing for me, being able to come home, swap out boats, grab my bass boat, and go fish something totally different.
Yeah, the hardest part for me is the fact that the financial side, that you put all this money and time and effort into it, and it's super easy. Especially like last year, I had an okay year, not great. The year before, I really had a bad year, and it's one of those things where you just put all that pressure and stress on yourself to produce, because I know I'm good enough to produce. I've taken high finishes before. I've done well locally. I've done well away from here. And it's just one of those things mentally that, gosh darn it, I know I'm good enough to do this, and then it just weighs on you. And I think getting back to the fun is when you fish loose, when you're having fun, you're always better, for sure. At least I am.
And I'll tell you one thing. I mean, doing this as long as I have, you learn that there's hills and there's valleys, right? And you have to keep your head on through both of them. There's going to be times where Ottertail, I mean, prime example, going in there, having a good practice, being confident, going out the tournament and zeroing. I mean, like, honestly, like, I would have never in a million years believed that, but that's part of fishing, right? Sometimes
Absolutely.
you win and sometimes you don't. Like, that's where you see the guys that have done it over time. And the guys that last, whether it's bass fishing, whether it's walleye fishing, whatever it is, they're able to keep their mindset. If you have a bad day, you got to let it go, because you can't get yesterday back, right? You got to just go forward. And look out the window and not in the mirror.
So Mark, we're just a couple weeks away here from the first stop of the NWT this year on Sharp. Where do you see that stop going, weight wise, everything like that?
Sharp is interesting. I've probably fished, I don't know, 4 or 5 tournaments there over the years. It's been a long time since we've been there. But it's a good fishery. It's a great fishery, actually. part of the Missouri River, and anytime you're on the Missouri River, obviously it's good fishing. Size wise, you're going to see some guys catch overs, especially with today's technology. Makes it a little bit different, but there again, there's enough forage in that system, or I should say rough fish in that system, that it's not as easy as, well, there's a big one over there, I'm going to go catch it. And there's a lot of things that are going to play. If we get rain prior to, they don't have a lot of snow out there currently, but if there's a big rain beforehand, that system can get really dirty. It is one system on the Missouri River that stays very stable water level wise, because they have to maintain that system there. So it's not like in Oahe where it can be down 40 feet, or even Sakakawea where it can be down, that maintains the same level all the time. So you're going to see guys up at the dam. You're going to see guys 40 miles downstream at the other end of it too. So, but one thing there again, Mother Nature, wind, that thing can get brutal. I mean, I was there for, I want to say it was an FLW event, and we knew the wind was going to come up, and some guys gambled on going south. The only one to make it back, and this is back in the heyday. So, I mean, with Gofron and all those guys, the only one that made it back was Gary Roach. And I mean, he had just went through a triple bypass surgery, and like he was wore out when he got back, but guys got stranded in other little bodies of water that are attached to it where they couldn't get out because the water had drained out. And I actually going in, probably those were 3-day tournaments, and going in, it must have been a PWT event because it was a 3-day tournament, but going in, I was sitting just outside check range. So I kind of played it safe and stayed upriver where I wasn't going to have to deal with the big waves and things like that, and ended up cashing a check. So there's going to be, it's a slot tournament. I think you get 1 over 20 inches. I'm pretty sure 1 over 18, 1 over 18 or 1 over 20. I think it's over 18. So you're going to have to make decisions. I've been there and had a big fish, like a 7-8 pounder, and I threw a bunch of slots back in the morning and then regretted throwing those back and missed the cut. So yeah, it's welcome to slot fishing. But it should be a lot of fun, and guys are going to catch a ton of fish. It has current all the time. So a lot of the fish are current orientated. We're going to hit it right towards that spawn time. So it could be fish as shallow as, 6-8 inches of water. You could be pitching the shoreline, or you could be, lead corn, or, dragging jigs out in the channel.
So what do you think, looking at your season, which event are you most excited for?
Shark would be one of them. I think that's going to be a great fishery. If I look at our schedule, lacrosse is going to be the wild card. That's a different fishery. It's not one that have been to. And if you look at those pools that we're able to fish, there's a lot of variances there, right? I mean, if you go, so what do we got? 7, 8, 9, or
Yep.
8, 9, 10?
7, 8, 9.
So 7 and 8 have a different slot than 9. And if you go down to 9, you're staying there, right? You can't transport fish back and forth. And it's got to be 1 over 26 or 1 over 27, right?
Yeah,
26,
1 over 27.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a big gamble if you stay upriver and you can have a 1 over 20, that's a gamble going down there. You better be able to catch one. So, there's that one's going to be the wild card. Dunkirk, New York, there again, we're going out there. They changed it again. We can only fish New York waters. That's going to shrink that up quite a bit. And it's not going to be the same ball game. I mean, you can't go to Canada, obviously, where it got won the last time. A lot of us were running to Pennsylvania the last time and fishing down that way. And some guys ran to Ohio. So, that takes all that out of play. Alpena, we were there last year for the championship. that Bay City, Lake Huron is not the same body of water that it once was. Hopefully, when we're in Alpena this year, we've got a lot more fish close and some better sized fish. So yeah, Green Bay is obviously going to be fun for the championship. It's a great time of year to be there. So yeah, all in all, the thing I struggle with this year's schedule is that we're going as far east as we've gone, and as far west as we've gone in a long time. So you're spreading out that field, and it's gonna be tough for a lot of guys to fit that in their schedule, right? I mean, some of the guys that I traveled with put it on paper, and it was 90 hours of seat time in the vehicle. Well, the average, when we talk about walleye fishing, and that's different than bass fishing again, most of the guys that fish on the walleye side of things have a full-time job. So when you talk about 90 hours, that's 2 full work weeks that they've got to take off just to sit in a vehicle. That's not practice. That's not anything. And so that's the thing I worry about this year is how many we're going to have good amounts of anglers at every tournament, right? You're going to draw the snipers in or those local guys in at those bodies of water. Like Michigan, for example, you got the Michigan Walleye Trail guys. Those guys will all show, or a few of them will show up at Alpena. Dunkirk, I'm sure you'll get some of those Eastern guys. But the sad thing is how we split it up. To get the East guys to travel to the first 2 tournaments is on the other side of the world, right? You'll get some of those Western guys that might fish the first couple to see how they're doing and then make their decision whether they're going to go East or not. But if you would split that up differently, I think you would have got guys to travel back and forth.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's definitely been a decision maker for me this year. It's 70 plus hours on the road for me. And as somebody who works a lot of 60 to 70 hour weeks, it's really hard to get that much vacation to just go away for 8 to 9 weekends a summer or a year just to fish some tournaments. We'll see what happens, but
and then throw it all on every holiday during the summer.
Yeah, that's another head scratcher. And I guess we can move on. We don't need to say bad things about anybody. Oh my goodness. So Mark, over the last, 27 years, what's the best piece of advice you've gotten from anyone? Fishing tours.
Man, keep on working. For me, everybody just thinks I get to go fishing all the time, right? That's far from our whole job. Back when I first started, I would have said that it was 80% fishing, 20% marketing, right? And there was a lot more opportunities for sponsorships and things like that. Now it's probably 80 to 90% marketing, 10% fishing. And you have to find your niche, right? And you have to be versatile at the same token when we talk about fishing. But when it comes to the business side of things, I think the biggest thing is get involved with your sponsors. I'm on, I think, this little run here now. The next 3 weeks at boat shows and sport shows will be like, the 10th shows that I've been to this year, whether we talk about open houses or sport shows and things like that. So there's a lot more business aspect to the sport than people really realize. And one of the things that I think that sets a lot of guys apart from other guys is just present yourself well at a show or even on stage, right? You'll notice me at rules meetings and even on the water. I mean, typically, unless it's dead summer, but I'm going to have a clean pair of shorts on and they're going to look good. I'm going to have my dress pants on if it's a normal tournament, things like that. And always having your jersey, not walking up on stage with a white t-shirt and, just presenting yourself well, keeping your boat clean, your boat not a disaster. I mean, that's my office, right? I'm representing Skeeter Boats, or I'm representing Berkeley, or I'm representing TH Marine when I'm in my boat. So just being courteous to people on the water, and at the dock, right? I mean, people come up to you all the time at gas stations or boat launches. Take the time to talk to those people because, in all honesty, that's what your job is.
Absolutely.
So how, as a other than the fact that you do this for a living, right? How do you stay motivated all the time to do this?
And that's a great question, but it's it's honestly keeping it fresh, Brandon. It's doing the bass side of things. It's working with companies, creating new baits. I this past year at ICAST, I released a new bait. Myself and Kyle Peterson, our soft bait designer at Pier Fishing, actually took the time and molded a spot tail shiner. And what we did, I mean, that's one of the things that's getting tougher and tougher when we talk about bait is not only getting certain baits like spot tail shiners and things like that, but actually being able to transport them. So one of the things in Minnesota, it's known that in the spring and in the fall there's a snap jig bite, right? So I wanted to create a bait that was a good snap jig bait that I could utilize and have, and we made natural colors. I mean, we created like, I mean, 3D imagery, but Kyle literally took that bait, molded it, and then we turned it into what we have now with the drip and the drip swimmer. So that's what keeps it fresh for me is that on the business side of things is working with those companies, creating new products. We just released a new boat this year, working with engineering and all that part of it. That's what I enjoy about, our business is the off season, working with those companies and talking about new products, whether it's rods, reels, line, bait, whatever it is. I mean, that's what keeps it fresh.
And I know you touched on it just a second ago here with, keeping clean, making sure you're wearing, your jersey and your boats clean. Do you think that's the main contributor in the longevity of your career?
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, if you look at the guys that have done it, a long time, that just don't come and go, right? It's presenting themselves well, making a sponsor say, "Man, that guy's always doing something," or he's always hustling to try to promote the sport or to keep things exciting. And he looks good. He presents himself well. Um, that's a huge part of it, right? I mean, that's part of. I mean, you don't walk into a business meeting, right, with cut off jeans and a white T-shirt that's got blood stains all over it. You don't do that, right? I mean, that's just how you wouldn't have a job long, right? Or you couldn't sell a product if you looked like a slob. So you can't do it in our industry either. Granted, a lot of the people you run into and talk to, yeah, they just got done cutting the sides off of 20 walleyes, but they still want to talk to you, right? So yeah, no, I think that definitely has a huge part of it. And creating those relationships. And, that's one of the things I've been with most of my companies a very long time. I mean, Berkeley, for example, 27 years. I mean, they were my very first sponsor. The first tournament I ever went to was a NOW event on East and West Okoboji, and I've had them as a sponsor ever since. And I've gone through multiple promotional managers, but it's always stayed the same.
That's awesome. That's definitely a point where, I think we all, at least in the industry, I feel like everybody wants to get to where you have that company that trusts you and sticks with you. And you obviously, do everything you can to repay that company and that mutual partnership. It makes the sport better, it makes you better, and it makes that company better.
If you look at the moves I've done, whether we talk about boat manufacturers or motor manufacturers, all those changes were for an industry reason, right? I was with Lund when I first started my career, and I was an Evinrude guy. Brunswick bought out Lund boats, and I literally sat with the president, and he's like, "Man, there's 100 boat companies, and there's 3 motor companies." In 2015 or 17, um, I was with Ranger Evinrude, and I was with Ranger for 17 years, and it literally there was a buyout, and I was really good friends with Forrest and Keith Daffrin and Randy Hopper and those guys there. And, they were in the process of coming out with a new manufacturer, Vexus. They had left Ranger, and I had to make a decision. Myself and Keith Daffrin actually fished Sturgeon Bay for numerous years together. And I got a call one day from Ranger, and they said, if you fish with Keith, you're going to be fired. And this was a week before. We were at Oshkosh, actually, at the time, fishing a NWT event, and it caught me off guard. And I'm like, all right, okay, this is going to make my decision real easy. And I was with Evinrude at the time, and they were going through some changes and different things, and so it was one of those things for me that made my decision real easy. My old boss at Ranger now had moved to Skeeter, and so I had some opportunities there, and so it's keeping those relationships. Whether somebody's at a company now or they're there tomorrow, I mean, you don't know where they're going to be next week. And it's a small industry. And that's one of the things that you got to keep in mind too. You never want to leave a company for $1. If you're going to leave, it better be life changing or, a good business decision for you, in the long run. And if you do it on the right note, right? Do it in a professional manner where you take the time to have the conversation with the person, talk through it, talk about, the pros and the cons and make that decision, because you never know where that person's going to be. And that's just a prime example. And I think we've seen it throughout our industry over time. I mean, when I first went to Ranger, it was one of my old bosses from Pure Fishing had actually moved to Ranger, and he welcomed me with open arms. And I had good relationships with George Little, who was actually the rep at Ranger. So even though he was my competitor, I still kept those relationships open. And that I don't badmouth any companies. Like, just because you run a Vexus or whatever, they build great boats, right? I mean, so I'm walking around at shows and I'm shaking other reps' hands and those types of things. And those are I don't care if you work for Daiwa. I don't use Daiwa, but I don't care if you work for them. And I'm going to keep, shaking your hand and being your friend. And that's one of the things that I think is the other side of the business that a lot of people don't see.
For sure. Speaking of friendship, sorry, Jake, did I cut you off?
Oh, you're good. Continue.
Speaking of friends, like one of my best friends and a good friend of ours, and he's been on the show a couple times, Dan Harper. We dropped his episode a few weeks ago, and he talked about
episodes.
Yeah, a couple of his episodes. We did a tackle talk, we did a longer sit down with Dan. And something he talked about struck me a little bit because it was super special to me is the relationships, and what you're talking about is just the people you meet in the industry. For instance, Dan was my co-angler, and he just so happened to be in my wedding a year and a half later. The relationships is what really makes this sport a lot more special than other ones.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I think a lot of guys struggle with in the boat. And I get caught up in it, here and there too. But you got to remember in our format where we're a team with our co-angler for the day, you got to try to make that the best you can, right? If you're grumpy and, rough with your co-anglers and not talking to them and doing those things, it's real easy. I mean, for us to get tunnel vision up front, right? But you never know who that co-angler is, or So I try to involve them in as much as possible. It's a little bit more difficult nowadays with what we're doing up front. But here's the other thing that I've found now with forward facing sonar. I don't mind them coming up front with me and making casts. A lot of times if I get bit and miss that fish, if they can get right back in there to that same location, they're going to get that bite. So make it a team for that day, and try to involve them as much as possible. With how we're fishing, it's not like back in the day where you could have a full conversation with a guy pulling boards in the back of the boat and like you had nothing else to do but eat sandwiches and talk. And I find myself, because I am competitive, that I just have that tunnel vision, and I'm constantly, everything's going through your mind at all times, right? Where's my next move? What am I doing wrong? What are these fish doing? Why aren't they here? Where are they? And so you just got to be careful on that, because relationships go a long ways, and I've met a lot of great coiners over the years. Had some travel with me. Dan's one of them, and it was a lot of fun. When you get a guy that likes to do that. But there's times where, for me, because I'm on the road so much, I just like to be in my boat pre-fishing by myself, because then I can go do what I want when I want. I don't feel like, okay, he's not catching any fish back there. I feel bad about that, right? So, yeah, I mean, some people always want people in their boats, and some people don't.
Do you have any superstitions while you're fishing?
I got a ton of them, actually.
So don't bring bananas then.
Yeah, bananas is one of them. I mean, I ran a charter boat over on Lake Michigan for a long time, and yeah, there's no bananas on board. But yeah, I have. It started with Pat and I. The year I won Mobridge, me and Pat and I traveled together, and bacon cheeseburgers 2 days prior to the tournament throughout the whole tournament, and that's all I eat is bacon cheeseburgers. I mean, like, I don't know if my system just gets right on them and I don't have to worry about anything, but yeah, it's bacon cheeseburgers. The other one is green underwear for some reason. I don't know. It just started back way early in my career that it was the color of money. And so during tournaments, I only wear green underwear. But those are the two superstitions that probably travel with me the most.
God, I
I
can't
love
wait
that.
until that becomes a reel on Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
But
That's
yeah, as
awesome.
Dan knows, I mean, it's like, I don't care. I mean, people go to the tournament rules meetings and have the dinners there and things like that. But I've always been skeptical about those types of meals before tournaments, and who knows where that chicken's been or how that chicken got handled or whatever. And I just know that my bacon cheeseburgers are going to, they're going to do their thing.
Culver's always produces. I like it.
Yep.
Mark, is there anybody that you looked up to, whether it's before you started as a professional angler or as you moved through the ranks?
Absolutely. There's tons of guys, and tons of guys have been very good to me over the years. But obviously, the family, right? My dad, my grandparents, they were the ones that got me involved. A lot of people don't know this, that I'm actually allergic to fish. So for me, I couldn't eat them. I grew up with an inhaler in my hand all the time because I loved to fish, whether it was on the ice or in the boat. And like, if I touched my eyes would swell shut. And so I fought that. I've grown immune to a lot of the touching and the scents and that type of thing. Still can't eat them. But if I look at guys in our industry, I mean, obviously Gary and Keith, and they're both great guys that are easy to talk to. The Glorvigans, I mean, great business guys, have done really well in this industry. Gary Roach, I still call him Papa. I was able to travel with him a couple of years. The McQuaids have always been, real close with me. Kevin and Aaron and even Terry, their dad, just because we were Minnesota people. And, Kevin's been doing it longer than 90% of us. So yeah, there's a lot of guys in the industry. And that's one thing that I've really tried to do is, I mean, when somebody has a business question or an industry question, taking the time to explain it to them. How do you get sponsors? It's different nowadays than it was back then, but there's still a lot of the same things. And as we were talking tonight, it's how you present yourself. There's a lot of things that go into that. But if somebody has a question, I take the time. I mean, I think if you look at where our industry is today, there's a handful of us that are making a living in this industry, and some guys are doing it different ways than others, right? Some guys are social media guys. You see a lot of YouTubers now making a living in the industry, so there's opportunities there. The social media side, I do as much as possible. But that's another whole aspect of it, right? I mean, that's another job. I mean, if people don't think the social media side of things is another whole job, they're crazy. I mean, if you have multiple accounts or multiple pages, whether we talk about TikTok, whether we talk about all that, like that's another whole job. And so there's guys that are good at producing videos and putting that out there. There's guys that have gone as far as to hiring video companies that now are traveling with them, creating content. The Next Bite guys have done a great job with what they do. So there's a lot of different aspects to the industry that I think guys are willing to talk about if you ask them questions. For the up and comers.
Yeah, you're definitely not wrong that this is a second job. We're just dipping our
Yeah,
toe in, and I'm really glad there's two of us because it has been busy to say the
Yeah,
least.
but I mean,
for
if you
sure.
look at a guy like Tom Wynn, okay, let's look at what he's doing right now, right? I mean, he's got his university. I mean, to do what he's doing with that university, with all the screenshots and the videos and all that stuff. I know
That
you
is a
guys told him not
full-time
to.
job, and then
That
some.
is a full-time job, right? He's doing great. I mean, he just got done talking to the Minnesota DNR about forward-facing sonar, and so yeah. I mean, there's different avenues, but Tom's only been fishing walleyes for 5 years. Take that into perspective. Drake Hurd, he's got his own tackle company. He's got a side business that does musky tackle, and they've got a side business that does rod holders and things like that. So there's a lot of different avenues where guys are making a living in the industry, but you have to be dedicated to it.
So a major reason that we started this was to help, guys from your weekend warriors to the guys that are fishing out of a kayak or from shore. Uh, give them some tips and help everybody be a better fisherman. What's one thing you could tell anybody that they could work on to be a better angler?
Being versatile and time on the water. Time on the water. I don't think there's anything that can be. I mean, like when I was a little kid. I mean, you from the time ice off until time ice on, I was standing on a shoreline. My mom would drop me off at a pond. It didn't matter. I mean, um, and I grew up in the cities or around the cities, and then there about high school, I moved to a little lake that had a few walleyes in it, but had smallmouth, had crappies, and for me, tug is a drug, right? I mean, I don't care if I'm catching panfish. I don't care if it's carp, catfish. It doesn't matter to me. The tug is a drug, and I just enjoy catching fish, and I enjoy teaching people. And that was one of the things when I had my salmon charter business. I enjoyed watching people catch the biggest fish they've ever caught in their life, right? It's that aspect of it. And, I've been lucky enough to have some really good friends. Scott Bond was one of them that, he's taught me a lot about bass fishing. Spending time with guys like that in the boat, Chip Lear, Tommy Scarless. I mean, we can go on and on about guys that and if you aren't learning something every time you're on the water, then you're doing yourself injustice. I mean, force yourself. I mean, it's real easy to get caught tunnel vision doing the same thing every day, every day, every day, right? It's real easy to throw a leech on a bobber and throw it out and wait for something to come. But to force yourself to go find a fish that wants to bite, or if you're from shore, moving down, reading the shoreline. Okay, is there a current seam coming off here? Okay, yep, I can see a little seam out there in the river. I'm going to cast out there and see what happens. Maybe it's a pond, walking around the pond until you find a little drop off. Those force yourself to get out of your comfort zone and go try something new.
Awesome.
Yeah, well said. Well, we're approaching an hour almost here, Mark. That flew by pretty quick.
It's easy to talk
We could
about fishing.
talk for
I love
hours.
it. Yeah, I can. This is something I love to do is talk fishing, and that's probably the thing I like most about sport shows. I love talking to people about fishing, and you just meet so many different people from all over.
The old lady always gets mad at me because I'll go into a Shields or something like that, and it's 20 minutes later. I'm coming out with a couple baits and about 10 different conversations.
Absolutely.
How many times you walk into a Fleet Farm or a Shields and you see somebody you know, and that's 20 minutes gone by, and you walk out
Yeah,
and
your wife's over there stomping her foot, tapping her
how do
toes.
you know everyone?
Yep. Yep. Funny.
Oh man.
Awesome, Mark. Well, thank you for your time. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely, guys. Anytime. I love to talk fishing, and anytime you guys want to have a conversation, I'm open to it.
Sounds great, buddy.
Awesome.
We're gonna have you on again. We appreciate you.
All
Good
right,
luck
guys.
this year, Mark.
You bet. Thank you. I appreciate it, and have fun and enjoy your time on the water, folks.
See you guys.
Yeah, that was awesome.